Hi, Erin. Erin Snow is the clinical director for Seeking Integrity Residential Treatment Program. And while we have a minute before we have questions, any updates on topics that you're hearing in treatment or from partners, as we're doing these journeys?
Oh, wow.
I know it's a big question, isn't
No,
it?
it's a wild ride. I mean, every day is full of new things. I would say, I'm not surprised anymore, but I am still tracking that this trend of intimacy disorders and compulsive sexual behavior has a lot of roots to it. And when I worked in substance use and mental health, I did not see the same trends. Yes, trauma for sure, I think is the root of a lot of addictions. But this one in particular, a lot of mother enmeshed men.
Mhm.
And honestly, I would say like we probably roughly 75% or more of our male clients have that attached. They have a mother wound in there. And it's not always what it sounds like, right? You definitely have those cases where it's, yeah, a lack of boundaries, clear enmeshment. But oftentimes it's more subtle and covert. And oftentimes the client doesn't know or doesn't see that it's happening because there's typically a father figure that is been painted as the villain, right? And maybe
Oh,
they probably were. They were absent, they were abusive, they were emotionally distant, they traveled all the time. But that's actually kind of the precursor for why the mom then uses her son as kind of a surrogate comfort blanket. But the damage that is then perpetuated in later relationships comes back to the child learns that their needs come second, that they're kind of here to make sure mom is happy. They're the support for mom. They are oftentimes the mom is not super happy about when they're growing up and moving on. And so they tend to be, whether it's over involved or lack of boundaries, really they're not the parentified parent. They're in some ways using their son um, as a partner. And even if that's in subtle ways, it doesn't have to be like incest or anything of that nature. But then what happens is these guys grow up and the things that they felt in that relationship with their mom, they were never allowed to express, right? Because mom's fragile, make mom happy. But they were like, I want to go play with my friends. I want to deal with kid stuff. I feel suffocated. I feel trapped. I feel, X, Y, and Z. And what happens is those feelings then tend to be expressed in partnership later in life, that love feels like suffocation. It feels like intimacy feels like a trap. It feels, um, so there's this avoidance that kind of comes up in partnership where it feels like these expectations are crushing and it's all fun and games until the commitment comes on, and then there's this like pushing away that I don't feel safe in intimacy. So I just see it over and over and over and over again, that I can't ask for my needs to be met. I can't, hang on one second, one moment. Okay, let me, a little dinner friend came to visit.
I was going to say, I think you had a little visitor. So, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it's heartbreaking that in at 40, 50, 60 years old, it's like emotional kindergarten for these guys, that we're teaching them how to have needs, recognize they have emotions and needs, and that they are essentially, they're impaired in their intimacy ability, and their partner's like, I'm over here alone in this relationship, why do you pull away? So it's this run and chase game, and they often go and get their needs met in a different way, right? That's no strings attached or destructive.
So, I have a couple questions for you because since we still don't have questions, I'll ask you. So, when there's mother enmeshment of any form, as subtle as it could be, is there usually like one son in the sibling system, or is there one son singled out for that role? Do you see any patterns with that?
It's most typically the oldest son,
Mm,
but but it certainly has also been the baby son. It's the son that's identified. Um, and so there can be multiple siblings, and maybe multiple of them feel this same way, but it's kind of like the person that mom feels can meet her needs the greatest, right? So she chooses someone or maybe two people to really rely on, sharing things that are not developmentally appropriate, um, and maybe overly emotional, or I rely on them, or fragile, like everything's personal if my child isn't acting a certain way, and it's hard.
So one more question before we get to the question on this. Are you hearing anything, and you may not be, from partners who go, when we were dating, this happened, but I didn't recognize that. I'm not blaming partners. I'm just curious, that they're going, in hindsight, I see that this was going on when we were dating, but I mean, there are places where it's
Oh,
like, oh, you're such a good son. You're so devoted to your mom, like, thoughts on that?
the partners always see it. It is the
Mm,
client that's not willing to see it. So they're protecting mom. There's oftentimes tension between partner and mom because he protects everything she does and says, walks into the house without a key, overparents your own children, um, picks fights, and there's tension between. So lots of partners on the extreme end are like, your mother's downright disrespectful and you don't protect me. And on the other end, it's like, I have always felt this unease and this didn't feel right, but my husband, shouldn't I be glad my husband has a relationship with his mom that's close? But it's like, do they need to talk on the phone multiple times? Like, does his mom still need to weigh in with her critical opinion on everything he's doing when he's 55 years old? Like, but they always see it and they were not heard. It's
okay.
rare that they don't have a feeling about it. They're the ones that are like, oh my God, I'm so grateful you're seeing this. But it takes very gentle maneuvering from our clinical team to be able to broach that topic, because oftentimes, again, they were trained and ingrained to protect their mom. And again, like, so I have been convinced that men learn intimacy from their mothers or the women in their life, if they're heterosexual. And they learn a sense of self-worth, self-esteem, um, pride in themselves from their fathers. And so those wounds can look very different: an absent father, an absent mother, a critical mother, and a passive father, that it all kind of plays out differently. But I just have seen this so many times now that it's unavoidable to say this is part of this particular addiction.
Yeah, and that's been my experience too, and it makes perfect sense to me. And you talked about the more transactional kinds of sex because there's no commitment. So then I'm not betraying this relationship with my parent. I am just doing this transactional behavior. So there's
Yeah.
no, but a partner, all of a sudden now there's feelings and there's this, and that makes it really complicated.
And the sad part is they superimpose their mother's face on their partner.
Oh,
And so, and I always say, it's not sexy to have sex with your mom. Why have you made your partner your mom? Like, and in a subconscious way, they didn't realize they were doing it, but that feeling of being trapped by intimacy, that I'm going to be absorbed by this person and I'm not going to have a self. That's what they felt as a child and they couldn't express it. And it's not what's happening right now, but the feeling is still there. The attachment has been altered, right? So that healthy attachment that we're looking for has never been created.
and like you said, they're starting in emotional kindergarten because they've never been taught how to do that. So,
Yeah.
but the good news is it doesn't take 50 years if they're actually doing the work to
They
grow
can
up to
learn
it. So, yeah.
quickly.
Okay, so we've got some questions. Betrayed partner, will a degree of enmeshment with my PA's parents and brother who struggle with addiction and dysfunction cause issues with recovery? He struggles with boundaries, decision making, and is relying on them financially while in school right now. There's been a lifelong terrible control dynamic, which is why I recommended cutting dependence so he can make a more independent decisions. Side note, they have given him some bad advice and his father doesn't even know about him being in mental health programs or daily struggles.
Oh, I think the
Oh,
next,
apparently the next one also, he has felt like it's me against them, which is not the case.
yeah. So this is really common. you're trying to be the voice of reason and saying, I want you to be a man, right? And lead this family and individuate from the family you came from. It's not uncommon that enmeshment comes with ties, right? So financial ties is a big one, especially when we have clients coming to treatment who couldn't afford to come to treatment and have, lo and behold, the mom is paying for treatment. It's really tricky and it's challenging. So yes, you are absolutely right to be saying that the goal should be to cut ties on that dependence so that you can make decisions that don't feel like more trapping is happening. It's not always possible, but you can create a plan to get there. But yeah, it does create problems in recovery. I will say that in dysfunctional family systems, the one who's trying to get well often is painted as the crazy one. And so in this family system, it sounds like you're the one that is well and trying to promote healthy boundaries, recovery, all the things. His family seems to have ties to him and kind of pulls him back into this dynamic of control. And I know that if he does that, it's almost like when you start to set boundaries with a toddler that's never been disciplined in their life, what do they do first? They tantrum.
Yeah.
They lose
Massive
it.
tantrum.
This is
Yeah.
not the way it's supposed to be. This isn't fair, And that is true every time boundaries are set with people whose systems did not have boundaries in them. So for him, I think he's probably tiptoeing around. Is there any other way to deal with this than head on? And there isn't. You can start small, but you do have to start having those conversations of, I want to grow up and be a man. I want to grow up and be the man of my family. I want to make decisions for my family. I want to protect my partner and be aligned with my partner versus being aligned with my partner 25% and then 75% is managing the dynamic over here that has a say and advice and opinions and control over my life. So it's not to say you can't recover, but it does present challenges in recovery, which is why having a lot of support is super important, not just for you as the partner, because this is challenging to witness and be a part of, but also for him, that lots of other people are going to reflect to him what he needs to do. And he's not going to want to hear it originally, but I think enough people say it, you start to move in that direction.
But like you said, the system will fight it. So you have got to be mentally prepared and have a plan for support of people that actually do have your best interest at heart. Because that family system doesn't have your best interest. It has their family system and keeping the same thing going over and over again. That's what the family system wants to do. That's what is known. And so we want everybody to do exactly what they're supposed to do in that system,
Yeah,
as toxic as it is, as hurtful as it ultimately is. So,
absolutely.
okay. The next one is betrayed partner here. I was parentified by my mother and I met her emotional needs because of her misery with my dad. How does that play with mothers and daughters? That's another great question.
Absolutely. So for mothers and daughters, typically we become more of the masculine energy, meaning that we become hyper functional. We become the caretakers of everybody in our life. We become the ones that are um, competent and reliable, but to a fault at times, right? So the wounding there would be that is my job, is to take care of everybody else, and I don't know how to take care of myself very well. That I struggle with not feeling guilty when I take time for myself or sit down or relax or self-care, that those things oftentimes, the voice in your head is that you have to keep going. You got to keep all the balls in the air. You've got to keep things juggling. So it creates this hyper functional daughter that is always kind of scanning the room for areas that they need to take care of. And in relationships, oftentimes that is kind of transmuted into caretaking a partner. So more of that maternal energy towards the partner versus requiring the partner to care for himself and you caring for yourself. So both scenarios play out in ways that require healing and help. And Because the ultimate goal is we want everyone to heal from their childhoods. And I don't think there's a single person out there that doesn't have something back there, right? Even if it was school age kids, bullying, whatever it is. Um, to be able to say, in this case, I'm allowed to rest. I'm allowed to let other people take care of themselves. I'm not a bad person for being selfish and setting boundaries. I'm allowed to, um, have self-care. I'm allowed to take space, all of those things. Um, and I'll just say I am in that role. So I get it.
So I am putting a bunch of resources on. So the first one, Kelly McDaniel wrote a book specifically for women who have this issue. And I haven't read it in a while, so I apologize. I can't tell you. I just remember that, called Mother Hunger. She also did a podcast with Dr. Rob on sex, love, and addiction. So those two might be really, helpful.
Yes.
And for the next one, which I'll read, but I also put some more resources on, and just on enmeshment. So there's a two-part video. We did a webinar on, or we did two-part webinar on mother enmeshment with John Taylor, who has worked with Dr. Ken Adams. So that's on our previously recorded webinars. And then Dr. Rob and Dr. Ken Adams did a podcast on When He's Married to Mom. Dr. Adams is like the guru on sex addiction and mother enmeshment. He wrote Silently Seduced and When He's Married to Mom. He also wrote Children of Sex, a book for children, adult children of sex addicts. This is an area of specialty for him. But Erin, the question is, what would help my husband with his mother enmeshment? Would EMDR help?
So again, anything Ken Adams, Dr. Ken Adams and John Taylor is fabulous. They have workshops. They have a whole institute of options out there. Somewhere I might start. Here's the thing with EMDR. So it depends on where someone is in their course in recovery. If they're not sober yet, I wouldn't start EMDR. I think that, so I've definitely used EMDR on mother enmeshment stuff, but this is a person who had a lot of sobriety and time. Because what EMDR does is it goes into the subconscious and it excavates memories and adaptive memory networks connected to certain pain and trauma. And it desensitizes the person to the pain of that. So that what may be a 10, it then becomes a 0. And it gives a lot of coping skills, resourcing. But it is really challenging, and it can open Pandora's box a little bit. And so I always say that it's really important for people. He may need to wade into these waters with education, a workshop, therapy before going to the point of EMDR. EMDR, I would say, would be, okay, I see this as a problem. I know I need to address it. And there's these subconscious roots that I can't pull up. EMDR pulls out the roots in a really effective way. But if it's done too soon in recovery, relapse is really probable.
So I just put one more resource in the chat. It's Overcoming Enmeshment. It's Dr. Ken Adams' website on that. And there's a little, take a quiz, and, there's all kinds of information on there that can be useful on this particular topic. And they do address it, but when it's co-occurring, like it's like you have to stop the acting out before you can start addressing these things. Because just like Erin was talking about, very triggering. You start, poking around at this stuff. So having qualified, that my whole point, have qualified help that can help you navigate, how best to process this.
Yeah.
And there are specialized therapists that do this work too.
Yes.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that if you think about why a person acts out sexually in the first place, it's a maladaptive coping mechanism, right? Typically learned way back in time. And so what they're saying is, I don't know how to cope with emotions, with triggers, I don't even know what I'm feeling, let alone the ability to do something healthy to process, engage, talk to someone about it. So until they have that, now I have coping tools. I have a healthy community around me. Then what you're doing is saying, well, here's a bunch more pain that you don't know how to cope with, often can lead to acting out when it's a little too soon.
Oh, and let's add on, in a relationship that is unhealthy, but is your mom, so now you're going to go up against your mom, so to speak, and tell her that, this isn't working for me. It doesn't go well. So make sure you've got the support. Now, I will say, because I remember Dr. Adams and I are friends, and he was sharing how one woman shared after her husband came back from one of their retreats. She said, "I finally have my husband. Like this is the guy, rather than this shadow version of, mother's child." So
Yeah.
he said it more eloquently. She said it more eloquently, but like it was very powerful that,
Yeah.
this is the man that I had hoped for in my relationship. So recovery and doing that work, which just reminds everybody that this is a journey,
Mhm.
and having qualified help to identify, okay, let's work on this now, and then we're going to work on, like, that is how you get through this. You don't, jump over and get magically fixed, but you do get through it.
Yeah.
Okay, Erin, the next one, betrayed partner here, approximately 4 months out from discovery. My SA husband has fairly well established sobriety so far and is doing good recovery work that I appreciate, regular work with a CSAP, men's group, and daily 12-step meetings. He is working on his therapeutic disclosure with his CSAP in concert with my partner betrayal trauma coach. As we get closer to disclosure being ready, my coach has given me a worksheet with a lot of options to decide what I want to include. I have a hard time figuring out how much details I want. Sometimes I want to hear everything. Sometimes I don't want to do the disclosure at all. Any advice on things to reflect on, questions I can ask myself to make some of these level detailed decisions. I don't want to ruin every potentially special happy memory I have, but I also don't want to doubt and wonder for years and regret not asking for more information. This is such a great question. Thank you. And thank you for like asking and
Yes.
looking, peeling this apart, because all of those things are true. And Erin, I know, can help with an answer.
Such a good question. And here's the first thing to know. This disclosure, full therapeutic disclosure, for those that don't know what it is a therapeutic process. So she's doing it right, where the partner is supported by a professional that specializes in this, and the addict is supported by a professional that specializes in this, are preparing to give a full record of truth, right? So it's like for the addict, having detectives on the case, we're mining through everything. We're getting a full record of truth. The partner gets to ask specific questions they want included in the disclosure. And then it's followed by a restitution letter, or sorry, an impact letter that's followed by a restitution letter. And then, so it's the least traumatic way to have a disclosure, or it's not a discovery, right? Where things are dropped on you, or trickle disclosure over years, death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's the way to prepare both partners' hearts to have a foundation that is like a launching point for the next phase of the relationship. So first of all, it's a choice. Some people choose, I don't want to know more. I don't need to know more. As long as they're in good recovery, they're doing the work, they're doing the actions, that's good enough for me. Let's move on. Other people are like, no, I don't think I can like have full consent in my relationship if I don't go through with this process and really know what my life has been. I am cautious around, look, again, in betrayal trauma, the brain is traumatized. So the brain goes to, I need more information. I need more knowledge so that I for sure can be safe and this can never happen to me again. That's not always helpful, even though the brain does that. Because actually more knowledge and information isn't what makes you safe. What helps you to be safe is being regulated in your own body, having good support and community around you, having self-care, knowing that even if my partner falls on his face and acts out and ruins our relationship, that I'm going to persist, I'm going to move on, I'm going to persevere, and I'm going to be okay. That's what brings safety. So I'm always cautious against going for too many details. Typically therapists will say, no, that's not helpful. Because here's the thing, what you're doing is ask yourself, what do I need to know? What's the bare bones, or the best bottom line that I need to know so that I can sleep at night? The big questions. Going into too much detail is asking for more trauma triggers that you didn't need, because the past is the past, right? So I would say maybe I need to know, how bad was it? What was the frequency? How often did this thing happen? Was it someone that I knew? Did you put our family in danger? Like those types of things I think are important to know, to have full consent on whether you can and should move forward in the relationship and what types of things you may need to look out for in the future. But descriptions on sexual acts, what a person looked like, what they said to them, what they felt, like those are things that are, some people want them. And you know what? To each their own. I'm not here to judge what somebody wants or doesn't want, but I do think that in some ways you're welcoming in more trauma than what is needed to make an informed consent decision about your relationship. And you've already got enough of that, right? And you're fighting to regulate yourself, and you're fighting to heal and to have support and to move forward. And you may be putting yourself in a position where it makes it a hell of a lot harder. So I would ask myself, what do I need to know to be safe? What do I need to know to be able to make an informed decision about staying in this marriage and moving forward and healing? Anything that's beyond that, you know, I would say leave off. And that's a personal preference, but also after years of doing this work and seeing betrayed partners request the nitty gritty and regret it, are like, why the hell? That wasn't necessary.
Yeah, because it gets stuck. Like I often see the partners that have gotten all those nitty gritty gory details are the ones that have a deeper well to dig out of, with like they're just, so dysregulated with things. I think it's important, like you said, if it's somebody and I always think a double betrayal when it's a friend or a family member or whatever. I also think it's important if it was in your house, like being able
Sure.
to reclaim your
Safety.
space. Hmm. Yeah,
Safety.
safety, but also like, okay, I need a bedroom refresh, everything's going in the trash, whatever, but it can be empowering to take back space if it has happened in your house. But it's also, good to know if it didn't, so I remember somebody was like, there was a camper that was an issue, and then another person had a boat that was an issue, and those vehicles were no longer part of
Staying
the.
on the first thing on the market.
Yep, exactly. They were sold, and I honored that the betraying partner was like, "Yep, yeah, not keeping the camper, not keeping the boats." I mean, it's like working towards the relationship healing. So hopefully
Absolutely.
that was helpful, though. And but I you have a professional, so I think talking it through, with your professional too can be useful. So.
Mhm.
What do I do if my SAPA denial about his mother enmeshment is a huge barrier to his recovery? He doesn't want to watch the Seeking Integrity webinars, read Ken Adams. He's just not interested. To add to the enmeshment denial, he has denial issues about the impact and harm his betrayal has caused. He doesn't think that viewing women through a Madonna horror lens is a problem. I'm the Madonna category with his mother. With so many layers of denial keeping him from treatment, what to do?
Yeah, well, this is where I say he's not in, he hasn't done step one, right? Which is like in facing the shadows, it's breaking through denial. In the rooms of recovery, it's like admitting you're powerless over that denial is the first thing we do in treatment, is we address that you cannot heal, you cannot have a true authentic recovery journey if you don't first take accountability for what is going on, to take accountability for your reality and the reality of the people that love you and are around you. So something's off here. And I would venture to guess that if he's not willing, I get like this. If you had just said the enmeshment, I would be like, yeah, well, that's kind of par for the course. And I understand that takes, for even in residential treatment where we're with them 24 hours a day, it's the safest place they're ever going to be. We're open, we're honest. Even for us, it's like, we got to really bring that one on slowly. And you are the antithesis to, mom's happiness in some cases. So I can understand why you wouldn't hear it from you, but I would hope you would hear it from a professional somewhere. But then you brought up the other parts, like he also has denial about issues of impact and harm of his betrayal. So I'm going, this guy's not in recovery, or he's really stuck on step one, not willing to like surrender to the fact that he's caused harm. So what I would be doing in this situation is I would be backing away. I would be saying, both of these things don't make me feel safe. They don't make me feel loved. They don't make me feel trusting of you. And therefore, I'm going to have to start setting some boundaries to just put emotional distance between us. That, obviously I would love for us to be closer, but I feel like that's gaslighting when there's denial there about what they've done to hurt you. And it's like, what's the big deal? That's gaslighting. That's saying your pain isn't important. Doesn't matter here. No, I don't get it. So it's healthy boundaries, but it's also wrapping yourself. I'm so glad you're here, because you found a platform that has a ton of support, many different options, the boundaries work group, the betrayed partner work group. Tamara Cooper has a closed group. She's our family specialist, our partner specialist. I mean, support sessions. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's just a lot of options for support. And I think you're in a relationship where your partner is not yet in recovery. And I don't mean abstinence, I mean like recovery, where they're able to actually be a part of helping you heal on the journey. Because if they're in denial and they look at you and are like, yeah, whatever, then I always say you're not past week 1 at seeking integrity, because week 1 is all about, so send him our way. We'll crack him. No problem.
Yeah, and I agree with the whole gaslighting, and clearly if you're viewing women through a lens that is not, you are a human being, you are somebody's sister, daughter, wife, whatever, aunt, whatever, and I mean, it's complete objectifying. You're here for my, for my gratification. So I'm really sorry for you. I put the link for the betrayed partner, no, for the boundaries work group. There's a betrayed partner work group that started last week, and you could still join that. There's also the boundaries work groups, which is what I was pointing towards, that one of them is starting yet this month. But that would, you can't change him, but you sure can hold safe space for you. Okay,
Yeah.
so the next one, betrayed partner here. My betrayer is very much enmeshed with his dad, who died 12 years ago. His entire life, he worked for his dad and was very disconnected from his mom, who emotionally checked out because his father was also an SA. He married me because I am strong and did the same things his dad did, expecting to get away with it. How does mother enmeshment play in this situation?
Yeah. So we see father enmeshment as well, but it looks different, meaning that it's not typically this emotional enmeshment. It's typically enmeshment in, like you had said, he worked with his dad and was very disconnected from his mother. So in probably idolizing his dad is more what it looked like, that my dad is the hero, the man. I want to be just like him, in terms of business and success and all of those things. But he also unfortunately followed in his footsteps and the things he probably didn't want to be, right? Because he witnessed what that did to his mother. His father's actions actually took his mother away from him in some ways because she checked out. And what that creates in the male is what we call performance-based validation. My validation solely comes from my success in this world. It comes from being validated for the money I make, for the status I have, for the things that I have. But I don't know who I am under there. I don't know who I am emotionally, spiritually. I don't know what I want, what I need. So they also didn't get the love and the nurturing that is needed for a child to learn how to have empathy, how to feel safe, how to then give that to a partner someday. And so you're right. I mean, he kind of repeats the cycle. And I always say these generational cycles don't break until someone turns around and stares them in the face and says, no more. I'm not going to be the next generation that passes this to my child.
So the same thing, check out the betrayed partner work group and the boundaries work group, because when those things are going on, and even the death, like lots of people, are still enmeshed with their parent who died a long time ago. Those
Absolutely.
patterns, like that brain message is still there regardless. So it isn't like, oh, parent died, so now it's all going to be better. No, those holds are way deep. But for you, betrayed partner, what do you need to do to take care of you? Because you are not his dad, you aren't his parent, and he doesn't need to keep repeating those patterns. So, and like Erin said, and nothing changes if nothing changes. So you being the, I'm stopping here with this, can be the start of that, but the system will fight. So, have support for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the betrayed. Over a year since discovery. We're both in therapy individually. This is a fetish arousal template question. My partner won't admit it, but I am APSAT but my APSAT and his CSAT think there's a power and control dynamic to his SA and PA. He also sees his CSAT for his rage and abusive behaviors. He is Mr. Nice Guy and male feminist at work and grouped strangers into my face when we met. Yet he will scream and call me names behind closed doors. When he speaks about other women, it's either seething hate and calling them controlling or abusive, or intrigue and love addiction. His online and phone fetishes include verbally degrading women and punishing them with a dom-sub dynamic. Can a kink for degrading women ever be healthy for a man? For an SAPA who rages by day, is neutral in sex in real life, and seeks to degrade women while acting out? Complicated question.
Yeah. So look, there's nothing inherently wrong with a dom sub dynamic. There's nothing inherently wrong with kinks or fetishes out there. It's how those things are used in healthy sexuality versus non-healthy sexuality. So non-healthy sexuality would include shame. It would include hiding. It would include hurting other people. It would include abusive behaviors, right? So when we're looking at what we would call a healthier dynamic with a dom sub, and actually if you really looked into, BDSM in other ways, it is not about abusing or degrading somebody. It is about playing with power dynamics. So somebody who might be uber strong in their life all the time wants to be dominated in the bedroom as an expression of surrender, right? So it's not necessarily that those things are bad, but certainly the way in which your partner is expressing them. Yeah, there's an issue with women here. And one thing we would say is eroticized rage is a word that we test for in the SDI assessment, which is a really big sexual dependency inventory assessment. It's also something that comes up frequently where sometimes, and in this case, it's a little bit complicated because he's also abusive to you directly, which is not safe, not okay, and not condoned by anyone on this platform. And so I hope you find safety for yourself in that regard, because it's uncalled for and it's not okay. And how the hell can you heal in that environment? But eroticized rage is essentially where somebody does have an issue, whether it's enmeshment, whether it is, I feel emasculated, whether it is, I feel like I don't have a voice or have all this resentment built up. And instead of directly putting that towards the partner, they act it out in their sexual life as a way to exercise control, power, and feel a sense of power that they cannot get in their natural life. And in some ways, I mean, he's also doing it to you. So there is probably a blanket issue with women, whether it's trauma, whether it's things that have happened to him that have caused him to feel like less than, like some insecurities under there, that women always screw me over, or, there's some beliefs in there that are running this, because this template is not just in the bedroom or in his acting out. This template is also in the way he treats you as his partner. So typically when we're talking about this as being like a fetish or kink, it's pretty specific to, this is what I use in my sexual life. But he has a problem that kind of goes over and above both reality compartment and sexual fantasy compartment, that both of those things are there. So I'm glad he's getting help. But I'm feeling for you right now, and really hoping that you have safety, even if that's like physical separation, because screaming, calling you names, like that makes me so sad for you, and you don't deserve that. And I hope that you find safety and care for yourself if that hasn't stopped.
Okay, so the next one, betrayed partner here. Would you recommend every sex addict undergo 36-year, 90 days sex abstinence? How can we decide 30 versus 90 days? It's hard when I have sexual and intimacy needs. He's doing a CSAT, SAA, couples counseling, reading books.
Yeah, so this is a great question. And I think it depends on the couple. It depends on the work that you've been engaged in for how long. We do recommend at least 30 days. And the reason for that is not because we don't want them to have intimacy. It's that they've had an unhealthy relationship with sex. So their brain is wired, their neurology is wired towards sex being fantasy based or sex being separate from intimacy. And so my recommendation would be, well, it's hard to say. How do we decide between 30 and 90 days? That's where I would say rely on your professionals to help you because they know you really well and they know the level of his acting out. Is there a disclosure on the table? Like there's a lot of things that would go into making that decision. But what I would say is that the goal is to rewire the brain with intimacy first, that this isn't just a physical act that ends in an orgasm, that this is about connection, that this is about enhancing a relationship. And so I would say doing something like Masters and Johnson's Sense Focus. It's typically like a scaled plan where the goal is building intimacy, connection, and communication around physical interaction. And it typically starts with lights on, clothes on, sitting up, and maybe we're doing an activity together that we enjoy, but we're just holding hands or we're, having some level of connection. And the whole point is to communicate as you go. Like, I don't actually like it when you scratch my back. I don't actually, I prefer soft touch to really hard touch, or I prefer really hard touch versus soft touch. So it's like being able to communicate your needs. And then it escalates all the way to the point of sexual intercourse, but orgasm's never the goal. The goal is connection. And in fact, there's like certain stages of that where you're not allowed to have sex and you're not allowed to have orgasm, right? And so it's like forcing you to say, how can we build our intimacy in this period where sex is maybe not on the table right now? I'll tell you, most couples I've worked with never made it like the 6 weeks. But it improved their communication. It improved their feeling of safety in their own body and with their partner's body. It helped them to be able to like stay connected to their partner, like eyes open, I'm with you, versus going off wherever they go in their mind. And this is like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. We're out of here. I'm done. So that's just a suggestion to help fulfill your sexual and intimacy needs. In the meantime, there's a million ways to fulfill intimacy needs. And I would say focusing on those things. But yeah, the reason why we put like an abstinence break in there when they first get sober is because their brain is wired towards sex in a completely unhealthy way. And it just puts like a stop in there so that they can begin to rewire it in a different direction. But in terms of deciding the length of time, you're going to want to lean on your professionals that know you really well.
And for you, Dr. Rob often talks about, do you want to have sex with somebody you don't trust? So I would also listen to your body. Like, I know that there's this craving to like, well, like now we've been so disconnected. Now we want to connect, and that there's a perception on both sides that if we have sex, we're going to be connected. But just like Erin was talking about, sensate focus, touch is like it's. Dr. Rob has twice on in the webinar, the second time because I nudged him on it, but he's talked about intimacy. He looked up the top 15 words for intimacy. None of them had sex in it. So all of this communication, that is such a foreign concept for most people because they don't talk about sex. It's just like, oh, we're going to be connected because we're going to have sex, versus like we're having really meaningful connection points in other ways, other touch. So
Yeah.
I would explore, maybe journal about yours, like what are you really seeking with that, and there's all kinds of ways you can take care of your own sexual needs. So what do you really, what are you seeking, and is having sex the most appropriate, and it could be appropriate and beneficial way in that moment. But I'm with Erin too, talk to your professionals and have the whole dialogue about what it is you're expecting with that, not just the placebo of like, oh, now I feel better, because now we're connected,
Yeah,
So, okay.
totally.
To add to my question above about the enmeshment denial, my SAPA's mom has Alzheimer's, so it adds another layer to his unwillingness to seek treatment or learn about enmeshment because of his sense of duty and obligation.
Yeah. And the thing is, just entertaining this idea and understanding it to be true does not necessarily mean that it's like, well, I got to kick my mom with Alzheimer's to the curb. I'm not going to be there for her end of life. Like, that is not the equation. It is saying, how can I protect myself and my marriage as I know that this thing has impeded into the health of my relationship? And what is a healthy way for me to be there for my mom who has Alzheimer's and is probably in a later stage of life at this point without it having destructive consequences on my marriage? But I understand, yeah, especially, and like Tammy said, we have guys that are still enmeshed with their mothers and they've passed on, you know? So it doesn't matter what stage of life they're in. This is hard to address regardless.
But he gave you a whole bunch of other pushback on other things. So, so, yes, it's another layer, but, that's like a really thin layer on a whole big chunk of other stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm a porn addict, 3 months clean. I was addicted from a very young age, and my relationship with my ex-partner and my rock bottom was my first real relationship. How do I even start to build healthy relationship with sexuality when I don't even know what it means or should feel like? So I'm going to put like while Erin's answering, we have a healthy intimacy work group. So I'm
Mhm.
going to go pull that one and put it in. That would be a great place to start. So
Absolutely. So congratulations on 3 months clean. I hope that you're getting a lot of support and have a community around you because this is challenging, especially when, yeah, being addicted from a very young age. That's one of the kind of precursors to a lot of our guys that are addicted to porn, especially this younger generation that was raised on the internet. I'm approaching 40 and, I grew up with AOL chat rooms and, porn wasn't, just a lot of things our parents didn't even understand how to protect us from. And so you grow up, a lot of people had all kinds of sexual experiences they were not ready for online. So starting to build healthy relationship with sexuality. Well, that starts with removing the porn. Okay. And so in the absence of porn, your brain can begin to rewire to like, what does connection feel like? If you're single, going on a date does not mean that we end up in bed together. Going on a date is like, how do we start to foster friendship? How do I learn to have a connection with another human being where I can be honest, open, vulnerable, real, be myself, and connect with somebody else? And I always say securely attached people don't lay all their cards on the table in the first 10 minutes. It's always a red flag when it's like rush in, everyone rush in. Like we're moving in together. That's not how a securely attached person protects their heart. They do this one step at a time, that as you show me who you are, I give you another piece of my heart. And then we continue down the path. So I think, first of all, you're a porn addict. So you're going to learn what healthy sexuality looks like in a relationship by going to meetings, doing a 3-circle plan, understanding or a 3-line plan that you're going to understand. Okay, what are the things that are off limits for me to build healthy sexuality? What are the things that are like, these aren't great? And what are the things I should be engaged with that bring me closer to connection, intimacy, and my like learning my body, my needs, my wants? And then you have people that help to guide you. Like, is masturbation ever safe? Is masturbation something that I can do at some point as a single person? Um, yeah. And that healthy sexuality, the bottom line is that it does not involve shame. It does not involve hiding and lying who you are with a partner. So if both of those things are not true, then you're on the wrong path. If both of those things are true, then you're moving in the right direction. But I would just say the way you learn is with a lot of support, education, being here. I'm so glad you're here and that you've got 3 months. Like your brain is going to start to, because look, porn is high intensity, high dopamine. It is the same release as literally cocaine in the brain. And so, yeah, how can a normal human experience even relate to that? Plus, it's the king of variety. So it's like, it's like pushing the button, waiting for like the next arousal payoff over and over and over again. And that's not human in sexual interaction. That's not even sexual interaction with yourself, knowing your sexual self. That's hyper stimulation of the brain that's not sustainable and has to escalate over time. So glad you're here and utilize our resources. Tammy, you're on mute.
And it's why porn is so, I mean, like it never disappoints. It's not going to argue with you. It's not going to, complain about anything. Like it's so isolating though, because you get into this little focus of like, well, this never disappoints. I can see 1,000 images a minute, and then there you are all alone. So it will be scary and risky. It will feel very foreign, but yeah, dating, having a little tribe of people that can help you. And Dr. Rob has shared about like he wants intensity. So when he had a healthy relationship, he wanted to run, and he had the people around him that helped him go, no, that actually is somebody you should continue to date. Yeah, now they're married, but it's like one of those things. The people that we would pick in addiction and even early recovery aren't going to be the people that probably will help us the most. But this is practice, like having an expectation that the first time you go date you're going to find the person, unrealistic. It's a numbers game. Practice, enjoy, learn, have support,
Yeah.
and enjoy the process. Like you
Yeah.
meet new people.
And being confident in yourself, like that dating is about two people matching, right? And so some people take it so personally when it doesn't like work out after the first date. And it's like, no, I'm not everyone's flavor, but that doesn't mean that I'm not an amazing flavor. It's just that I'm not everyone's. And so always being honest about, hey, I just didn't feel the chemistry, or I just didn't feel like we had common interests. And so I'm going to continue on my way and I wish you all the best. That's the loving thing to do. It's a good thing. But yeah, real relationships come with vulnerability. Porn does not.
Yes, and real relationships, are messier,
Mhm.
but they're all so much, I mean, like it's so much more meaningful
And
than sitting with
rewarding.
technology. My partner is a sober PA, 7 to 8 months since discovery, with him for 18 years, an affair 9 years ago. Wants us to move on sober. He continues to minimize just porn and thinks people are much worse in his groups. Struggles with empathy, wants us to get better, but I cannot go back. He has a CSAT that seems to justify his actions by telling him his profession was stressful and he looked for a way out. He's now retired. I think he needs 12 step, but he doesn't identify as an addict. Disheartened. I have one question on this. Is he telling you that his CSAT is saying that, or are you hearing that directly from the CSAT? Because anything that's coming through the lips of a lying and minimizing addict, I would be concerned about. Um, and then the other thing, I'm going to point you back to the healthy boundaries for you. But Erin,
I mean, yeah, that I feel you being disheartened because I don't know, like he's not just a porn addict. I mean, he's also having affairs in person. And so like you can minimize the porn all you want. You still betrayed me and you still so and again, I highly doubt his CSAT is justifying his actions, but I am sure that in his state of denial, lack of empathy, all of the other, he's loving to package it that way. Um, And yeah, okay, so he was stressful at his job. Welcome to reality where we're all stressed at our jobs. It's context, it's not a reason, right? And we, of course, look at all of those things also in treatment. But yeah, he needs 12 step. He needs, he's seeing a CSAT. So that's the part that I'm like, what's happening here? That he's seeing a CSAT, but he's not identifying as an addict. So I'm hopeful that CSAT can push him over the edge. But unfortunately, you can't make him do what he's not willing to do. So maybe you can be the motivating factor by beginning to take care of yourself and step away for a bit. Um, that if it, if you being there and pushing him and motivating him and saying, what, see the light, like isn't working, walk away for a while and take care of yourself. And if he values the relationship, he'll do what love requires.
yeah, so and we have a residential treatment program for him. Another option, both Erin and Dr. Rob do expert consultations for couples. And sometimes hearing it from someone else, can be useful. That's done via Zoom. They work with people all over. Erin does a 90-minute, Dr. Rob does a 2-hour one. If you want more information on that, email TAMI@seekingintegrity.com. I'm happy to share more details with you. But for some people, it's a wake up call. It's also, my opinion, my experience, validating for partners who find, like, oh, someone is hearing, so
Mhm.
just something to consider. But at the end of the day, he's justifying, minimizing, even they're all much like I don't care what form of addiction you have. If you're going to the meetings, or going and looking at groups and going, oh, they're way worse than me, you're not understanding, wow, they did some things too. I did some things. I can relate to the shame. I can relate to how hurt my partner is. I can, whatever, like I can relate to the negative emotions, and I want, my best choices didn't, got me here, versus, in a different place. So
Yeah.
when there's that level of denial, that's a pretty stuck point. And you can't change him, but you can hold healthy boundaries for you. So
And I hate that crap because the
mm,
comparing what you did, right? Well, he's worse than me or he's worse than me. If you notice, even in your post right here, it's not even about the porn. It's about the pain of being alone in a relationship with a partner who cannot see you, cannot validate you, cannot have empathy for you, cannot show up for you like that. So it doesn't even, who cares what all of the different behaviors are? The pain is when you have a partner that betrays you, lies to you, gaslights you, minimizes your pain, won't show up for you. Like that's the pain. And so I don't let the guys get away with comparing themselves to anyone. They're not in your relationship. They're not in this, partnership with your partner is alone, married. What the hell is the point of that, right? It's so I just that stuff bothers me because don't compare, guys. Don't compare.
yeah, well, and it's like, if you move it to this chemical arena, oh, I only drank beer, I didn't drink whiskey, or I only drink whiskey, so I didn't drink. It doesn't matter. Guess what? You're both drunk. It just doesn't matter.
Right.
So
Right.
okay. So the next question, betrayer here, can you speak to the crossover or relationship of other process addictions to problematic sexual behaviors? I'm in recovery for SLA, PA, alcohol for years, have just begun admitting to myself that my relationship with food and body image are also problematic. Just curious in your thoughts on this relationship. Working with my therapist on all of this, but curious about your thoughts. I love that you're paying attention because we can't be happy, joyous, and free using 12-step language if we're hanging on to something. So we
Mhm.
have to address all of those things. So
Yeah. So this is a great question. And I'm so grateful that you're dealing with the things you are dealing with and that you're recognizing. Because here's the thing, I want to be prisoner to no one. I want to be prisoner to nothing. I want, and for many of our guys that, especially that come into treatment, we're evaluating for all kinds of comorbidities, right? Is it also gambling and spending or technology addiction or video addiction or food compulsivity? Or because here's the thing, it doesn't matter what it is, the root is the same. I cannot sit in my own body. I cannot sit in my own skin and feel my feelings and be present with myself and regulate myself and ask for what I want and need, connect with others. So I look for anywhere but here. It's that syndrome of like anywhere but here. If I can numb out scrolling on my phone, if I can numb out eating a box of donuts, if I can numb out by going and getting a dopamine hit while watching porn, if I can drink to feel different, it's all about altering the present state. It's I don't want to be in this body in this moment in this stuff. And so we look at all of it very holistically in treatment. We're looking at everything and we're addressing it all at the same time. Um, and so, yeah, you're absolutely right. We get guys that it's like, nope, sex is the thing, but a lot of guys, it's multiple things. I mean, definitely food has come up a lot recently. Definitely guys that are chemsex or sexualized drug use that have other drug and alcohol things that are sort of paired with their sexual behavior. Certainly, we've seen gambling, certainly technology and scrolling and video games comes up often as well. And the goal is like, how can I bring you into your body so that you're not running from yourself? You're not escaping your experience every chance you get. And so my imagination tells me that probably you're kind of playing whack-a-mole a little bit. It's like I slap down this one and this one, and I'm working on those ones. And then it's like, damn it, now I'm eating, snacking all night long. And what is going on here? And it's just a sign that like I'm still running from sitting in my body and being with me. And so that's where, especially if you're a little bit down the line in recovery, that some trauma work can be really helpful at figuring out what is it inside of me that is causing the challenge of being present with me. So that's where EMDR, brain spotting, breath work is incredible. There's lots of different options out there if you're down the line in recovery and want to really figure out like what is the other roots that are going on. But so proud of you for being in, SLAA, PA, and sober from alcohol. And now it's the food and body image. And yeah, this journey is like peeling off layers of an onion. Um, I don't ever want to be done on my journey. I want to, and not to say that I'm going to be in this like intensive, crazy work the rest of my life, but I always want to shed layers that are no longer serving me. I always want to wake up and try to be a better version of myself. And so that journey and that work continues. And so I'm really grateful you're looking at the next layer.
Me too. And on that, we're past time. Grateful you all came with great questions. Come back. Well, thanks, Erin. We'll see
Thank
you in
you.
2 weeks.
All
Bye,
right. Have a great
everyone.
night, everyone.